I speak to you from a dystopian future in which you're fat, diabetic, dentally challenged and creaking like a farmhouse cellar door. I'd tell you that life didn't work out the way you planned, but you know full well there never was a plan. You'll always just go with the flow and with whatever seems like the least boring idea at the time. Don't give me that look. You know I'm right. And I've got to tell you, mate, some of those ideas weren't the greatest decisions you've ever made, but we'll get to all that in a minute. The most important thing that I need to tell you is that the gut instinct you always had that there was something a little bit different about you was right on the money. No, you're not equipped with telepathic superpowers, and your cock never develops as fully as your 7th grade classmate Jimmy Mansfield's did. No, mate, your specialness is something entirely different. Basically, your brain has developed differently to most of your classmates. I say most of your classmates because actually about 5% of them are in the same boat as you. And no, I'm still not talking about average cock size. It's like this. Most of your classmates have the ability to do shit that doesn't particularly interest them. I realise this is a bolt from the blue, but it's true. They can, if they want, work up the motivation to do truly boring shit like homework. There are some other issues too, but that motivation thing is one of the big ones, and it's going to have a massive impact on your life and the levels of success you experience at school and work. You got something called ADHD, and just to sweeten the deal, you're autistic too. You will receive no help in coping with all this, mate. I'm sorry about that, but you're born in the wrong country at the wrong time, and the issues with your brain will only start to become common knowledge where you live about 20 years after you leave primary school. So I'd like to give you a bit of advice while I have this amazing opportunity. Maybe it'll make those school and work years a bit more bearable. Buckle up, mate. It's gonna be a bumpy ride. That's a quote from a movie you're gonna fucking love, by the way. Okay, firstly, you're not wrong. School is truly fucking mind-numbingly, inescapably boring. Even today, in your distant future, it's still boring as batshit for the current generation of school kids. School, as experienced in most countries, hasn't changed substantially since the Victorian era. Even kids with regular dopamine levels in their brains struggle with it. Turns out the education system is the issue, not you. It won't make the torture of sitting through all those lessons any more enjoyable, and you will still get in just as much trouble and struggle as much, but that feeling you have in the pit of your stomach that it's a pointless enterprise will, unfortunately, be proved right. The system is flawed. The entire educational apparatus is not fit for purpose. Even those kids that emerge at the other end with a great set of exam results will be ill-equipped to cope with the realities of the real world. Oh, I'm sorry, I have more bad news, mate. The next 7 years of your life, senior school, is going to be even worse than those first 7 at primary school. Now, pausing the advice for a moment, if you'll bear with me, here's a few predictions. You're going to get constantly told you're not putting any effort in. You're going to loathe with a volcanic, white-hot passion every nanosecond of it. You're going to get in a lot of trouble. You're going to skip school regularly. You're going to start smoking and joyriding and being a vandal. You're going to learn to fight. But here's the kicker, mate. When everyone's written you off, you're going to pass all your ordinary level exams anyway, just to piss them off. Please enjoy that moment when it comes. I know I did. you're going to scare the shit out of a lot of people on a regular basis. I realise empathy's a stretch for you, but there are some moments coming up in your life that are so incredibly sketchy, it's a 1,000,000 to 1 miracle I'm here at all to speak to you from your terrifying future. That's heavy, ain't it, mate? Sorry, it gets worse though. You nearly fuck up the lives of blameless third parties at the same time. In a couple of years, your mum's going to buy an XJ12 5.3 litre Jaguar. Try and resist the urge to get your own key cut for it. I realise that it's an adrenaline rush like no other, and that driving that thing at 140 miles an hour down the A1M will supply you with enough dopamine to keep you fueled for a week. But mate, you'll only be 13 years old. The good thing about that car is that it will get you laid for the first time, but Samantha would have shagged you if you'd rocked up at her place on your skateboard, so please don't use that to justify your joyriding. Try hard to look at things through other people's perspectives. You're completely fearless, but they're not. Thinking about it, I probably should have mentioned this earlier, but you should know that this brain malady you have is not your fault. You didn't get it through all that sugary shit you're addicted to, or the marker pens and glue you sniffed, or the smokes, or the weed. ADHD is genetic, mate. That's the good news. The bad news is that since it's genetic, you're never going to grow out of it, like ever. I'm here in my mid-50s with it. Perhaps if you'd known you had this thing and that you were stuck with it for life, you'd make a few different decisions somewhere along the line. Who the fuck am I kidding? You wouldn't. I mean, you won't. Brush your fucking teeth. As you move on from primary school, you're on the cusp of being highly successful at sport. 2 sports specifically, actually, swimming and running. You're going to be the best in your school by some margin. In fact, you're going to be in the top 50 in the country. I know, can't quite believe it myself, but it's true. Thing is, you're also going to stop doing it around about the same time you decide to devote yourself to pursuing women and to booze and to the good life. You're going to start getting rounder and you're going to lose your fitness. So mate, consider staying active. You don't have to train 6 days a week like you are at the moment, but try and keep one of those sports going. You'll find out later on that exercise is fucking brilliant for people with ADHD. It's a natural dopamine boost and you won't wheeze like a deflating bagpipe when you run for the fucking bus. Higher education is going to be as bumpy a ride as school. Thing is, when I was in your shoes, I thought I had no option but to stay in education until I figured out what the fuck I wanted to do with our life. And I realise now that couldn't have been further from the truth. Yes, you have the brain power to get to college, but the path towards a degree is a difficult one. You'll end up going to the only college that will take you with your dreadful advanced level exam results, and 14 months later, having switched degrees twice, you'll have a nervous breakdown and drop out. After a brief stint working, you'll go back to a different college, switch degrees again, and then do a 3-year course in 2 years because you're a fucking plank. You could save yourself all that ball ache and just go out and get a job that looks interesting. That degree and all the stress it took us to acquire it has been of zero use in adult life. Remember when you applied to that air traffic controller school? Oh wait, that hasn't happened yet. In a few years, you'll apply to an air traffic controller school and they'll offer you a place and you will decide not to go. Consider going. That sort of gig is perfect for people with brains like us. Your diminished dopamine levels can be a powerful tool because you're less likely to lose your cool when the shit hits the fan. Be a member of the rescue services or a paramedic or a cop or a soldier or something. Right, maybe not those last two, but you know, something where serious shit goes down on a regular basis. So yeah, I know the expectation for white middle-aged English kids like you is to go to college, but there are other options, and they'll probably work out far better for you in the long run. Don't go headfirst down the death slide at the open-air swimming pool to impress Tracy Salmon. You'll break your nose on the end of the slide and go on to develop sleep apnea, which amazingly will fuck you up even more than the ADHD. Weed's great, and there's a specific recreational drug coming in the 1990s that's going to make a few waves, but leave it at that. Now, I do realise that you've already started down this particular road, what with those regular visits to the pick and mix section in Woolworths, but you're going to get in serious shit once the petty stuff escalates a bit. You're only doing it for the dopamine rush, so do something else instead, like mountain biking. What's that? Oh yeah, I know there aren't any mountains in North London, but it's what they call scrambling in the future. Look, the point is, try and get your kicks without breaking the law. Carry on the way you're going and you'll have known to police on your record forevermore. Basically, mate, you're a shit criminal because you don't give a fuck about the consequences. Here's my last bit of advice for you. While it will be unavailable to you for most of your life, there are some drugs that can really help with your neurodevelopmental disorder. They're not a magic fix and won't make all of ADHD symptoms disappear overnight. But once you do get access to them, you'll realise just how much of an advantage all the normies had over you. That's the good news. The bad news is that you won't get to try them until you're in your 50s. If it's any consolation, and we both know it's not, I am trying to make up a bit for lost time. Alright mate, it looks like I've run out of time. It was great to catch up with you and to give you the advice you never received from your parents, your school, or any health professional, mental or otherwise, at any point in the decade behind you and the 4 fucking decades ahead. If I have one final piece of advice for you, it's this: fuck the haters, find your people. There are good folks out there who will get you, not the least of which is a stunning girl you're going to quite literally bump into in about 15 years' time. She's a fucking diamond, mate, and will stick with you through thick and thin, even when you're a complete and total wanker to her. You probably don't deserve her, but she's got real character and sees something in you that you don't even understand yourself. So for fuck's sake, try to be less of a dickhead. Fucking hell, the connection's crapping out, mate. Time's run out. I was going to say something. What the fuck was it? What was it? Oh yeah. Buy shares in Apple.